Are you looking to expand your mind? Do you like to challenge and be challenged? Looking to improve yourself and share your experiences professionally and personally? You're in the right place. Welcome to Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd.
All right, we are live. Welcome to another episode of Scoutcast. My name is Rolf Surd and I'll be your host. So, for the longest time, more cost-effective labor in other countries have always attracted companies to try and manufacture their products for a more economic way of doing things. And for software development, this is no different. Hiring teams in, for example, the Far East to build your product is happening to this very day. And, developing software might look like producing a product, but it's very different. It's not like you're going to mass produce a toy when you outsource your project to it, Far East or any other company that's going to develop it. So, especially among developers, there was and still is some resistance with hiring outside help. And due to Corona nowadays, everyone is working remotely. So it doesn't even matter if your team is situated in a different country or in a different city altogether. And this is what we are going to be talking about on this episode. Onshoring, nearshoring, offshoring. Are you unsure which one is right for you? And we are roasting these marshmallows with Arjan Kolkman, CTO of Convect Beheer. And they are actually outsourcing their development at this very moment. So Arjan, welcome to the show. I'll introduce you to the listener right now. And after that, we can have this discussion. So Arjan, you started your career in digital TV broadcasting industry in 1995 after obtaining his Master in Science in Computation from the University of Manchester. And during his career, he worked as a team lead / software development manager, and he was CTO for companies in the broadcasting and medical industry. He started 2 companies, one in the broadcasting space and one in the medical space, of which one he has sold and the other one still trades. Having lived in several countries, South Africa, the UK, Belgium, and worked on every continent except Antarctica, he eventually settled in the town where he went to high school. Currently working at Convect in Apeldoorn as the CTO, which is the very first Dutch company he has worked for. He's married and is the father of 2 kids who distill his career down to he does something with computers. That sounds relatable. So, as said, he has used outsourcing, nearshoring, farshoring for both software and hardware projects. So interesting. So, welcome, Arjan. It's a long introduction, but glad to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm also joined by some of the regulars here on the show. Sylvester, how are
you doing? Very well. Thank you, Rolf.
Have you used outsourcing or have any experience with it? Hopefully you do, otherwise you're not going to be saying much.
Well, I've worked on a number of projects where actually a team was outsourced.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure we're going to get into that. That way it didn't work.
Sure.
I've also went to India once to kind of like fix a project that didn't work. So I have some experience in the field, yeah.
Okay, well, nice. Well, hopefully you can share that today with everyone. And Panche, welcome to the show. How's it going?
Thank you, Rolf. Yeah, going good. I'm a bit, my nose is a bit stuffed right now, so if I sound a bit weird, it's because of that. I got tested, so I'm negative on COVID, so that's positive.
Thank God, man.
Good to be here.
Actually, you've been on both sides of the outsourcing world, right? Like you've been like the outsourced party, but you've also hired them, right?
Yeah. So years ago, I initiated a branch of a Dutch company in Macedonia, where I come from originally, and we, with the team, we grew that team to about 25 people, and we did quite a lot of nearshoring projects from that office in Macedonia that we started. That was 2010. I've been on a lot on that side, and then also on the side of companies who are actually requiring nearshoring capacity.
Yeah.
So
that's great, right? That we have both sides of the dime, so to say, in this episode, so we can definitely view it from multiple angles. Myself, I also have a little bit of experience with outsourcing. I used to work for a company that had multiple teams in the Philippines, actually, so that's like super far away. And I went there for 2 weeks once as well to smooth things out with the project going there because it's so far away that the team needed some external or like internal help from us on a more regular basis rather than just a couple of meetings in order to keep this stuff going smooth. And Arjan, I was wondering, do you have a similar experience where you have to travel across the globe in order to synchronize with these outsourced teams that you've been utilizing, or how was your modus operandi?
Yeah, a lot. Till a couple of years ago, not for the last couple of years, and definitely not in the times of COVID. Mm-hmm. But previously, we used outsourcing and nearshoring in two different ways. We had our own teams in foreign countries, so you could say that is in principle not outsourcing, but still far in nearshoring.
Yep.
But we were also using external companies in foreign countries to develop parts of the product or do part of a solution or help with fixing a particular problem. So in principle, my experience has been with mostly all kinds of different ways. It's directly contracting people to, in principle, writing specifications for whole products that were developed by external parties. To, in principle, what we are currently doing and what I've been doing in the last few jobs, more team augmentation. So hiring a group of people to augment a core team, to add more development power in such a team.
Okay, and that's working well, or is it a challenge?
It is working very well, but I would say that comes with a certain amount of experience and also a lot of preparation. I think you can do these things if you don't take them seriously and underestimate them. Things can go wrong pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. But if you do your homework and you prepare these things, you treat people that you pull in your team to augment it as the hiring of permanent staff. Yeah. And you spend enough time on that, then it can be really powerful.
So maybe a question from me. I'm getting the impression, Arjan, that you've been doing this for a while. You said you have quite a lot of experience with different locations as well. How has this form of nearshoring evolved throughout time, from your perspective?
I think I don't know how it has evolved, but I can tell you how it has evolved in the projects that I've been involved with, where I think with the older projects, say call it 10 years ago, that it was really a waterfall model where you would write a long specification and you would in principle give a task to a company and let that company run with it. So they would have their own project management. They would establish their own team and they would in principle charge you a fee to deliver a particular piece of technology. And I think that doesn't align with any of the agile methodologies that we have now, because then for a part of the projects you just run in a waterfall model, and at the end of the project, if you underestimate it, you are just presented with something that you may or may not have meant that you wanted that. Mm-hmm. But what I've moved to, and like I said, that is really working very well for the projects that I've been working with. Is really keep the team agile, treat the developers as just permanent employees, involve them in the stand-up, and do your project management from your own company. Yeah. So it's really adding people to the team. Yeah. And in these days of COVID, whether somebody is working in Apeldoorn in an office block 2 streets away from you, or working in a foreign country. If the time zones are not too different, there's actually no difference there.
I agree with that, right?
But do you
as long as you're in all remote, it's going to work pretty flawlessly, I think. But what do you think will happen once offices open, if they actually open again?
I think a lot of this will stay the same. what I've read and what I've talked to for quite a number of people from different companies is that they still would like to keep at least a part of the remote working, and some companies have said like we will keep working like this. I think a lot of people have been positively surprised by how smooth the process has been to move from being in an office building to people working from home. I can say the projects that I've worked for, the one at Convec now and the one before this was at Cradle in Northern Ireland. We can say that the impact has been very limited, and I think that's a very positive thing from being in this industry. COVID in principle from a business point of view and from day-to-day work has impacted us very little. So. If you see what it does to other branches and other industries, we must be glad that we work in this industry.
Absolutely.
We're sort of really the privileged branch, the privileged group of people, I think, professionals. And I agree a lot with you what you said. For those who have been practicing this way of working, also in the years before, this was just like a really minor step of transitioning towards a fully remote. You already had all the processes in place. You already had all the tooling in place. It's just like moving the rest of the team in this modus operandi. So,
yes,
yeah, I'm still wondering what's going to happen, right? Because people are going to move back to their offices, and right now it's really easy, right? And I fully believe in nearshoring, outsourcing, whatever we're going to call it, as long as you make it one team. But I'm wondering, once people go back to the office, whether you get that distance again. I think that's typical for most outsourcing projects, right? But the distance between people and the company, actually. So how aware are they of what the company is trying to do? How really part of the team they are?
Yes, I think exactly like you say, that making the people part of your team and in principle make them understand, if you want to call it like that, the mission of what you're trying to achieve and get their buy-in. That is as important with permanent employees as with nearshoring or farshoring staff. I think really from a perspective of motivation, if people understand what they are working on, what the idea is, and why they are doing it, that makes a very big difference.
Okay. Yeah. I think
how do you go
the challenge
about that? Because, for example, you said something about treating everyone as a team member, but still they are working for a different company. And is it difficult to select the right team members for your team? Like, do you even get to select individuals, or do you get you just hire a company and they supply the people for you, or how do you get the best people for your team?
So what I did in my previous company, I spent a lot of time talking to different companies, because you need to be clear what kind of skills that you need. You need to know your technical roadmap. You need to know the points where you need to improve. So, for example, in the current project, we knew that we were weak on DevOps. And therefore, for the first couple of months in that project, we have a full-time DevOps person on board. Right. So but we want to scale that down as soon as we have that under control. And then, for example, we get a user interface designer on board to improve the UX experience, for example, of the product. And that's one of the advantages of nearshoring. But like I said, you shouldn't underestimate it. I mean, this flexibility and the ease with which you can, in principle, establish a team, you should not make you not do your homework. And so I spent a lot of time. We went through 9 different companies in the previous in my previous job, and only once we had 3, we started interviewing people. So we treated the hiring of members really as hiring permanent employees. So interviews with different candidates, and then in principle picking the ones that we thought would fit the team best. Okay. And then that led then to a decision in which partner to choose, and there we then established a team. My rule was always like, because you can make this outsourcing go crazy and say DevOps comes from this company and development comes from another. Mm-hmm. But I've made a rule for myself, and that has worked. Like one core team, I want to have all the skills in house. I'm going to use a nearshoring team to augment the amount of work that you can do. Yeah. But I want one external team, not more than that.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if I understand correctly, the way you've operated mostly is hire individuals or hire a team that becomes part of your team essentially, but they are in principle employees of another company, correct?
Yes. Okay. So outsourcing and then in principle nearshoring.
Yeah. Have you worked with in cases where you've had your own establishment somewhere else?
Yes.
And well, it's quite interesting then. So how do you compare the two experiences?
Between so
that you whether you hire a team or people who are working for another company, but or they're working for your company or your branch of your office somewhere else.
Yeah. So I think what your question is really have a far or nearshoring team that is part of your own company.
Yes,
so establishing a remote team. Yeah. Or in principle hiring in a team from another company. That's what you're. That's what you're saying.
In your experience, how has that worked? Like, what would be the differences that you see, advantages or disadvantages in the two approaches?
Yeah, so I've had quite a number of teams that I was responsible for that were, for example, in India, Canada, Australia. So in that case, I would say it is more difficult if you establish your own team abroad. It's more difficult than near or far shoring, because you in principle become responsible for quite a number of things that you now in principle make the nearshoring company responsible for. So finding offices, organizing equipment, getting the people. Sometimes it's the paperwork to get foreign people into other countries that needs to be sorted. Doing the interviewing and making sure that you adhere to all the local regulations. So I would say that is a lot more difficult. And in the end, for the end result, I don't really know whether there's such a big difference. Whether the people call it like you establish a team in India, whether you would hire a team in India via a third party, or whether you would establish your own team there. I think from a development perspective, if you find the right people, it doesn't really matter in which mode you run.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, unless you have somebody, let's say, local to do that for you, or you take over a company that maybe you have a good fit with. Yeah,
I just feel that, like I said, I traveled a lot till a couple of years ago because these teams were all over the world, and then you have the responsibility at least what I feel to at least be there once or twice a year to speak to people locally and show your face, and because. There were quite a number of these teams. That resulted in a lot of travel. I think with nearshoring companies, it's still useful to have a face-to-face meeting with people, but you don't feel the pressure that it's actually your responsibility to do that. So it still has its benefits, but it's not absolutely necessary.
Comes an interesting conundrum maybe. We mentioned that the team needs to understand what your vision is, what your goal is, what you're aspiring to achieve with the team, and when it's clear also to them, things go work. We totally agree with that. Can this not be a bit conflicting? Because when you're hiring people who are employed by a different organization, that organization might have different values and different goals, and in certain cases could be maybe conflicting also with your goals. So where would the loyalty of those hired people lie in?
So eventually, I think if that really was a choice, I mean, their salaries are paid by the external company, and of course you have contracts in place that you wouldn't be able to hire the people even if you desperately wanted to take them as your own employees. So it's logical to assume that the loyalty lies with the outsourcing company, but. I mean, and that's why I spent quite a bit of time to establish the relation with that outsourcing company. You need to, in principle, feel that this company wants to sees this as a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
If you get the feeling with the company right and they have the right people, then you have a combination that where that is not such an issue.
Yeah.
But you are right. It feels, but that may just be a feeling that if people work directly for you, you have a more security there. But on the other hand, if people tell you then, like, we're going to leave next month, then it's exactly the same thing because they find employment somewhere else. So
that's
I don't know.
But there, for instance, I could think of several cases where I've been on both sides of this. So I can think of several cases where, for instance, somebody is working. Somebody is like in a nearshoring location or offshoring location. They're working for a client, and then they want to change a project, or they want to leave. They want to leave because their salary is not high enough, or they want some things from the company, from the local company, but they're not getting it. As a consequence of that, the client, which you are hiring that person, is experiencing a sort of a loss or disturbance in the team.
Yeah.
And
yes,
you have very, very little influence on that when that happens.
Do you have any influence on people making the decision if they're working directly for you or freelancers? I don't think it matters, right?
Well, it does matter, of course. It does matter because what a certain person is valuable to you when you are hiring them, it doesn't mean that the company they work for originally that pays their salary, they're worth to that company the same. Because you're the one that person is creating value for, and that value that they're creating for you might be exponentially higher than the value that they bring for the company that pays their salary.
Of course. Right, and it's also higher than the rate you're paying them. But what I'm trying to say is you could make the same argument for any freelancer, right? Even if they're working with you in your office, they could leave at any point. So I don't...
No, that's not no, because then you are negotiating directly with the freelancer. And in this case, when you have like a company, another organization in between you and the person who's delivering the value for you, then some things can get muddled. So I don't know, maybe you have never had this experience, right? But like, I'm just thinking that, well, I've seen this in my experience happen.
I understand what you're saying, but I've not had that experience.
Oh,
but
great.
But I think that is then, I mean, should that happen, then it would again be a discussion with the partner company.
Yeah.
And you need to have good links to those people as well to say, like, we need to make a plan so that it is clear that you are willing to do something to keep that person on your team. But I understand what you're saying. I don't have experience with that myself. But it may feel that you have more control over people that directly work for you. I mean, you can directly negotiate with them or make a plan if they show intentions that they want to leave. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so what I was wondering is that, you mentioned that you are outsourcing people to augment the current team, internal. So how does that discussion go? Because I can imagine that there is some... some resistance to, outsourcing a part of the team at the internal team where they say like, oh my God, now I have to work together with these guys that I don't know, maybe that there is some other, maybe they feel threatened or whatever. So how do you convey a message like this to a team where you say like, hey, I'm gonna help you guys out with some outsourced individuals?
First of all, the strategy where I say I want to have a core team. And then augment that. So that means like we are not trying to replace the people that work at the company. So from that side, there was. I've never had the issue that people would feel threatened.
Right.
The second thing is, most of the time there's another reason why you do this. For example, in my previous company, we needed to hit certain targets. We were a startup. Investors wanted to see that we, in, for example, 6 months, needed to reach a target. But they also wanted us, for example, to have a 12-month runway from the money point of view. Now, we didn't have money for 12 months to establish a team the size that could, one, deliver the work, and you didn't have the opportunity to hire people, give them permanent positions, and then let them go again 6 months later. You don't want to do that to people. So in that case, the decision to go with a bigger team, but then use nearshoring, so that you don't have the problem if at the end of the 6 months you need to say, okay, we need to now part ways. That was the reason. And if you bring that to your current team, like, this is the reason why we use outsourcing, then you can easily do it. In my current job, it is the flexibility that we need. Like, hey, we really need a DevOps engineer, but we don't need a full-time one. Right. And eventually, we may even scale down to having somebody that is on call and maybe works for us only 1 day a week. Right. We need to have help on the UX side, but we're not going to hire a full-time UX UI engineer or designer into our current team. And so there is always a reason why you do this. And if you make that clear, that one, it's not an intention to replace your current team, and two, the reasons why outsourcing actually makes sense, then I've not had, and I can honestly say that, any issues in people in buying into the strategy. Okay. But it's, again, making sure that everybody's on the same page, understands the strategy, understands where you're going. That makes things much easier.
Yeah. When you, and why you're making certain decisions, right? So.
Yes. Yeah. And have the people involved in the hiring, because they need to work together. We use a lot of pair programming, working together, also with the people from the nearshoring team. So there needs to be a click between the people as well. It is not like throw some work over the fence and wait for it to be done. This is really like working together, like you would work with any colleague in the same office.
Okay. I think we're actually all kind of agreeing on this approach you're describing, right? Make it one team, make people part of the vision and the thing you're trying to achieve. I think I would at least like to hear also stories of things that didn't work, right? So maybe we have some examples of that, the way outsourcing or nearshoring didn't work.
Yeah, there are a lot of examples where, so in my previous company, they had, when I joined there, they had just done a couple of outsourced projects, several attempts that had all failed. And this was in principle a person that had a very good idea, didn't have the software skills to judge the process, got some money from investors and thought, okay, good idea with money and hiring an external team will work. And that team was left way too much on its own without actually really understanding where it needed to go. The quality of the software, that person couldn't really judge. So it was, when quite a bit of the money was spent and there still wasn't a product, the questions were asked like where is this actually going? And this went through several iterations. And when I joined the company and I said, like, I want to use nearshoring, I had to do a lot of internal sales to get that done because the experience were just bad. Yeah. But it is that underestimation that I spoke about earlier. Like, it is easy to find somebody. I mean, if you're on LinkedIn, you probably get 2-3 invites for people that want to work closer together or that want to learn from you. Let's learn, but they all just want to sell you an external development team. So it's easy to find people. It's easy for them to put a team together. And if you don't do your homework, then you think you're making a lot of progress very quickly, but it's going to bite you later on.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and I've seen a lot of these things where really large amounts of money were put into projects where people just thought like, okay, this is a cheap way to get rid of a problem. throw money at the problem and then it will go away. But that's not how it works. Like what you said in the introduction, it's not like making a toy. It still comes with all the complexities of developing a software project. Yeah. And what you're actually saying in those things where I have it go wrong is, let's try a waterfall model with some people in a foreign country, and then it will work. And of course, that will work even worse than a waterfall model with a big local team.
Yeah, in my experience, where it sometimes goes wrong is, I think it goes in line with what Arjan is saying. Having it really clear the motivations why you're doing it. If you're just doing it purely for financial reasons, and it's just not gonna work.
I don't know. Why not?
I mean, the financial reasons. Well, purely if that's financial reasons, financial benefits should come as an outcome of whatever it is that you're gonna do. So the reason is like you want to hire qualified people to solve a problem. Sure. And maybe hire them at a lower rate. But if you're just focused on, I'm just gonna find something cost effective and without actually doing the homework and the due diligence and figuring out if this is going to actually deliver value, and it's going to fail.
And I think,
well, yeah, I agree and disagree with you. I agree that you need to do your homework, but if your objective is purely save money and then you do your homework properly, then it can also work. But if it's just purely a financial decision and it's financial people making the decision to do this and choose the partner that they work with, then I haven't seen that go right. But I would say if the strategy of a company is to establish a team abroad or to hire people from a third party abroad, I still think it can work even if the driver is only financial benefit. But you need to do that homework.
We agree. I think I said exactly the same thing. So if you're just doing it, because there's like, what was one of the cases was Hertz, very famous case. They just like threw it in order to save cost, save money, and get bonuses out of it, and then it's just like spectacularly, completely failed. All of that, and you really, really, really need to put a lot of effort if you're gonna. Imagine that you need to integrate a team in the next where you're working, but then in the next town, like extra team of 2-3 people. Like, what is the effort going to take to do that and get the team on board up to speed? And now imagine you have to do that across 2,000 kilometers with a different culture, different speaking people. So the effort, if you really want to get the most value out of it, and not just financial value, but actually value in delivery. That's like, you need to do the work to put the work in it.
Yeah. So my personal experience with far shoring in this case was pretty horrible actually, because like we were acquired by a company that had a team already there that were doing in their case I think it was Visual Basic, but we were having a Java product, and one of the things that they wanted to do is have that team also work on the Java product. So there was a team, all the way across the world in the Philippines. So with it's like a 7-hour time difference, work together with us on a product that they don't know, with a programming language and principles that they've never applied before. So we had to educate these people, and they were really nice. They were really nice guys, right, to work with. But in terms of the qualities, it just wasn't there. And our managers were directly speaking to their managers, so these guys were just they were having a really hard time getting to grasps with the product that we were making, and in the end it was just a disaster. They promised stuff that they couldn't deliver, and it just didn't work out at all. My personal experience is definitely not a good one.
I think what you just said is kind of like key, right? They promised things they couldn't deliver. I fully agree with Arjan. As long as you bring people on board your team, right, and you treat them as people and they're part of the team and they're working on stuff, that can work. If you're trying to say, well, I'm outsourcing this piece of functionality, just go build it for me, I think it's going to be tricky in any case, right? If you nearshore it, outsource it, or whatever.
Yeah, even if you develop it local. There are so many. It's not that Agile became something that became successful in the software industry, because that all came from like writing huge specifications, and a lot of people will probably not even write those specifications. and then hoping for the best. Is not going to work.
My coolest example of that, and I just remembered this, it was actually my first employer. So it was a long time ago. They still exist, and they still do the same things, I imagine. But it was for a huge company in the Netherlands. They wanted this big new project. And I still remember, as a junior developer in the Netherlands, I had to actually read all the use cases, right? You know, all those freaking long template thingies, right? There's lots of boilerplate, and then you get to the gist of it, and you still don't understand because you need to read all thousands of them. But then I had to estimate the use case, kind of like in how many days is this going to take? And then at some point you expect as a junior developer, well, I'm going to build this. No, we're going to package everything up, right? It's like 3,000 days, and we just outsource it to India. This is going to work. It was kind of interesting what happened next. I think they're still dealing with the lawsuits, maybe, but it doesn't work.
So it didn't work out.
No, and there are too many people that, and I can imagine that if you have a good idea, you don't understand software that well. You have some investors. You think you're going to build this app or you're going to build this system in a cheap way. It's all very. It can be very exciting, and initially things look positive, but when things go off the track, it is very hard to get it on the track again, because you're burning through the money, you're burning through time, you're not making your promises to investors, and before you know it, you have something on your hands that you can just not handle. And that's what I'm saying, like the preparation, but also then the ongoing maintenance of that relationship and monitoring what is happening. It is something that requires a certain skill, and I think if you take nearshoring employees and in principle make them part of your team, then that whole monitoring thing becomes very easy, because you have your daily stand up and everybody is there, and that's what I then personally see as one of the advantages of nearshoring. You're then in the same time zone. So things like a stand-up in the morning and doing pair programming and reviewing each other's code without having to wait for a long time for a review to happen is all easier if you're close to the same time zone.
Yeah, so let's define it for the people that don't know, right? So we got nearshoring, which you say like, it's close by, so it's relative in the same time zone, so the communication becomes easier. And then you have, of course, like offshoring or farshoring. So which variants are there, and what do each of these entail? Could you maybe have a definition?
I don't know whether there's a very tight definition for it, but I would say nearshoring for me is stops in say Poland, Ukraine, Croatia, Macedonia. That's where I would more or less draw the line. And if you go further east towards India, Malaysia, the Philippines, China, I would consider that farshoring.
Yeah. Okay.
To help me out then?
And it's the same. Both are outsourcing then, right?
Sorry?
Both are also just considered outsourcing, but outsourcing could also be like, I'm just going to hire a freelancer here in the Netherlands.
So outsourcing, if you talk about the definition, I would say outsourcing is an external company. Mm-hmm. So that could be a law firm or a company doing your administration in the Netherlands even. So that wouldn't be near or farshoring, but you would still outsource it to an external company. You could establish your own call center or your own production facilities in China under your own name. Yep. That would be farshoring, but it wouldn't be outsourcing because it would still be your company. So, I don't know if that's an official definition, but that's how I use it.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense, and I think it's good to clear it up, right, for the listener.
And I think I had a question for Rolf that I've been thinking about, because you said your experience was with the Philippines, right? And then you explained the thought of people who were, basic developers, and they had to develop later in...
they were shoehorned basically into our product,
Right. So, and that, went the way it went. Mm-hmm. Do you reckon if that team was locally based in the Netherlands, but in another place, another town, whatever, and you had to work with them and integrate them, would have they had a bigger chance of success?
I think so. I think if we were to include each other in the stand-up and work relatively together, maybe doing some pair programming or mobbing even, because we did, like, at that time everyone was working as an individual, right? There was like zero collaboration going on between the developers as well. So I think that would have made a tremendous difference, because I went there for 2 weeks to actually pair with these guys. So I think if that was the standard way of working, it could have made a difference. Yeah.
So, but why didn't you do that? Like, you could have still done the pair programming, right?
Like the way that these guys worked is that they started work at like 2:00 in the Philippines, which is like, I don't even know at what time that is in Europe, but I think it's 7:00 or something for us in Europe in the morning. So basically, by the time I got to work in the morning, they already had like half a day done. And back then, because we're talking like 9 or 10 years ago, back then, I don't know, no one in the office was pair programming at that point. I'm sure it existed, but it wasn't as a widespread concept.
Yeah, and probably communication. I mean, if you look at from 10 years ago till now with video conferencing and things, like, okay, it existed 10 years ago, but they were quite expensive systems that were in dedicated rooms in buildings. I think with the speed that we have now of the internet and the ease of getting clients to do calls, it has opened up a lot of possibilities to work remotely. But I think in that case the time difference is probably the biggest factor there. And sometimes that time factor works in your favor. I mean, you can in principle have a project that works if you need things delivered, you can in principle give the tasks to a team in India, for example, and when you start work, a lot of the work has already been done so that you can continue. But I think in most instances it is a lot easier to work closer together and really work at the same time. Yeah. So but I've seen projects where that time difference was a benefit, but for the things that I'm working on now, it wouldn't be.
So based on your experience, Arjan, I would assume you would advise on people to try or pursue the nearshoring or offshoring approach also for getting their services.
Yeah, it's a tool. So it's a tool in the toolbox that you have available as a decision maker, and I mean there is a lot of flexibility in it. There are definitely cost savings in it, but you need to do it with enough preparation. You need to find that partner where you think you can establish that relationship with, and then I would look for a partner that in principle has offices in the Netherlands, for example, local, so that there is still a local go-to person that you can speak to. So the nearshoring partner that we now use actually has their head office in Amsterdam. So they have developers there as well, but the developers that we now use are based in Croatia. So I think that is very important. And then, like I said, take the time to hire the right people, know what you want, and then find them like you would hire full-time employees. And if you don't have the skills to decide whether people are good, you cannot do the technical interviews yourself. Get help in that area, and don't make the mistake of not doing that homework because it's so easy not to do it. So because I mean, like with anything, anybody can promise you the world, but I mean, those people are there to make money as well. And if you don't push the project in the right direction, and you don't get people motivated to work on your project, then for them it's just a job to write the hours, and whether they work on the project or not, they don't really care. And that's what you want to prevent.
What kind of ties in the follow-up questions I wanted to have? Do you think that in which circumstances or conditions you would advise companies not to pursue this?
I would say don't put all your eggs in the nearshoring, farshoring basket. So I would say do this if you have your core skills in your own company, in your own country, and then you need to scale up because there is just more work to be done, and you just need more people to do that work, and then augment your team. But I would not think like I have this project or I have this product that I want to build, and then without any technical skills or with any local technical support, try to do this and hope that you can manage it, because it is software. It remains complex. Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you have difficulty judging what developers and project managers are saying to you, then they can in principle tell you anything. And so that's why you need to have those skills local. That's what I would do. But and like I said, that works for me. But I'm not saying that's, of course, the only recipe towards success. But definitely one that works.
One of the things that you mentioned also or in the beginning of the discussion, you said you in the beginning when you endeavored on this path with working with companies and partners abroad, first you worked with fully outsourcing projects or pieces of work to companies, and then you went into a modus of integrating people into your team, augmenting your team, as you say. I quite like that term. One of the biggest benefits of that, of doing what you opted to do, is the knowledge, which is probably the most important asset, remains with the people and they're within your team. So if you are fully going to outsource a piece of project, the knowledge for maintenance of that or to build upon that is never yours.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a risk as well, because I mean, if something would not work out with a partner, or something else would happen, why the team would move on. They might leave the company, or they may elect to work on another project within that same company. Then if you don't have the skills in house, you run a risk, and that's what I want to prevent at any time. Is that even if tomorrow that relation would be severed, we wouldn't be able to make our deadlines, but at least we would keep the product as it stands, have it running, and support our customers.
Yes. Yeah, and that's interesting for you to mention, because my brother, for example, his company Nearshore in Belarus, and he specifically mentions to me as one of the biggest cons of doing it this way is that the commitment of the external team, so to say, is on a different level of the people that are direct members of the company. So if a deadline is coming up and I don't know, people need to work overtime or whatever, the commitment for these people, in his experience, is on a lower level. Is that something you also experience?
No, I would say absolutely not. I'm maybe I've been very lucky, but I think I've put a lot of effort into selling this mission and making people aware of why we're doing what we're doing.
Right.
And for the last couple of weekends, we had to work overtime because we had to update systems. Yep. And I don't see a difference at all. I mean, I was lucky that both the people in Holland and the people abroad were very motivated to do this.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of overtime doing it, but it was just nice. People understood why, and the result was very, very good. So maybe that makes it easier to do it because you're part of a winning team.
Yeah.
But a team can only be winning if everybody contributes to it. So like I said, maybe I've been lucky, but I've absolutely never had that experience that I felt like, okay, but I cannot expect less, or I need to expect less from people that are coming from this other company. Absolutely not.
I think it also depends on your selection, right, of the partner company.
Yeah, and of the individual people. But like I said, maybe I've just been lucky there, but I can absolutely 100% say that doesn't apply to my experience there.
I've actually had quite the opposite experience, where people who are actually in the nearshore location tend sometimes to be more motivated than the people within the original team.
Okay. And how is that so? Like, why is the role reversal there, you think?
Well, the term that people used at the time were, people and developers in, let's say, in Netherlands, that was the case, the original company in Netherlands, it was, they're too spoiled. So it's like 5:30 gone. And then at least the team that I worked with, I was really proud of that team at the time in Skopje, was like, oh, we have things to do. We have like a go live. We have a demo tomorrow. Like we need to really wrap things up. So there was some sense of belonging and like things that needed to be done. So it's not really. I actually never had that experience that you are mentioning, Rolf. Very close to what Arjan is saying, and maybe even reversed.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever had to deal with cultural differences? Does it play a role even?
Even now?
It can play a big role, especially I think with far shoring. It's something to be aware of. Dealing with people in a team in China is completely different than dealing with people in a team in India. But I think if you do that right and you acknowledge it, and you treat the people on their strengths, then I think a more diverse team actually gets better results than a team from people only from one country. And even now, like I said, our current employees or the people from the nearshoring partner are from Croatia. You just see that there's not a big cultural difference, but still something to be aware of. But overall, the team, I think, gels better because of those cultural differences than it works against us. I mean, they are more talkative. They talk more about private things than people in the Netherlands do. Yeah. But that means the whole team opens up a bit more to talk about their things, the things that you what I know from a meeting with just Dutch developers would never talk about. Are just things that are discussed, and it brings the team closer together.
I'm curious about the I am getting curious about what they're talking about, but let's leave that in the middle.
No. So let's not go. No. But it's just more about about brothers, sisters, things like that. Like I bought my sister a car because this and this happened to her, and things that probably, as far as I know, like I said, it's the first Dutch company that I work for, and I worked there for half a year. But what I know is that these things would normally not be discussed that openly, like family and things like that.
Talk to us more then. But
okay, maybe it's my lack of experience.
We are also 6 people, out of which 2 out of those 6 people are out of Netherlands. So it's quite a melting pot.
That's why I was asking about the cultural differences, right? You already asked why I was asking about that. Now, what I've noticed is that in some cultures it's not polite to say no, and right in Holland we tend to be a bit direct, and that took some time for me to learn, right? So if I ask a question, can you do this? Then I always get yes, but actually you had to spot the subtle movements basically, or subtle hints that actually was a no, and that to me took a long time to figure out, and it led to a lot of frustration, at least on my end. So one of my experience was then mainly with a team in India, which was part of the same company that I worked for. So with people saying that things were going well, and that you need to continue to ask because they don't want to admit defeat, or they see in principle asking for help already as a failure, and being aware of that and keeping asking the questions, and also creating an environment where you make clear that it's that it's better to ask for help than stick your head down and work for 3 weeks on the same thing just because you don't want to admit that you need help. That you create that environment in which you feel safe to do that, and like I said, once you get that, you can get a lot of benefits out of having different cultures in your team. But you need to be aware of it. That some people need, you need to work with in another way. But overall, I mean, the more diversity in the team, I think my experience is the better it works. I fully agree. But it takes some time to get used to. Sorry, Pansy.
You've said diversity quite a few times, and it's quite a hot topic over the last few years, I would say. So how would you define it? What do you consider a diverse team?
At the moment, I would say it is diversity in culture, diversity in gender. I don't know if things like religion and other things they don't, but yeah, the way sorry.
Religion is tightly tied to culture.
Yeah, and but I think those things, like if you have people with completely different cultural backgrounds working together, and and I don't want to talk about ratios, but at least there are women and men in the same team.
Yeah.
Then I've always worked. Those were the most successful teams, and I've tried to explain it to myself, like why does that work? And it's probably people still all have they use the same programming language, they know about patterns, they know about the technology, but still their background then still allows them to look at the same problem or the solution in different ways. And it's kicking an open door, but the better you understand the problem, the better you are able to make a solution that works. So I think these things I don't know how, but they still contribute to in principle finding that that optimal solution.
Yeah. You were talking briefly a few minutes ago about creating this environment that is, and this was for people in India. I think you were talking about where it's okay for them to ask questions, and it's okay to be in a position where, in their perception, they were failing. Well, in your perception, obviously not. Wouldn't creating that sort of environment be beneficial everywhere, not just India, but like wherever you are? Don't people here in Netherlands need that sort of environment?
Yes, and I think that is very very important to build any successful team. But what I meant to say there was that in India you would have to pay particular attention to that part, because there is a cultural background where there is just a hurdle that they need to go across to actually do this. They're not used to it. But creating an environment of trust where, that's how I see my job most of the time, as keeping all the bad things away from the team and creating an environment for them that they can fully work and concentrate on doing their job. That is my role. And creating this trust also between team members is very important.
Yeah.
I could not agree more.
Yeah, very good. It's very nice that that is working out for you. I think you found a way to make it work for you, and hopefully that the listener can pick something up from this and make it work for them as well. Because I do believe that it is here to stay, right? Nearshoring, farshoring, it's been around for a while and it's not going anywhere. So might as well make the best out of it. So pretty impressed with your good experiences with it, at least. It's also good for me to hear the other side of the story as well, because I sometimes only go off of my own experiences and hear some other guys say like, it's never going to work, it's not going to work. So this is giving me renewed hope, at least for the future. Yeah. I don't know, Sylvester, how about you? Because your initial experience wasn't a great one either. So
no.
Did this episode change your perception about it?
I think Corona kind of changed my perception, right? I think, like we're going to do fully remote, right? I think it could work. It doesn't really matter where people are, as long as they fit within your team. So that's why I said I fully agree with what Arjan said. As long as you treat them as internal employees, it does not matter where they are. So I don't see that as negative. I do still have a problem with the typical, the failure stories we all heard, right? The typical outsourcing of here's the project, go make it, or treating them as the B team. I do have a problem with that. That's not going to work.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if this is nearshoring and outsourcing, or it's simply become kind of like a distributed company. So maybe that's the difference to me.
Outsourcing a stack of specifications, say like, hey, build me this, is probably not going to work in any country.
No, no.
No, not even in your own country.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. So I don't know if anyone has any more questions, or maybe Arjan, you have a question for us, or I don't know, Panche, you have some more questions to ask. No.
I'm good, thanks, Rolf. What is your tip for the day then?
My
For
tip.
the week? Yeah.
Yeah, man, that's a good one. I actually did not think about one. So do you have one maybe, so I can quickly think of one.
Okay, I'll give you guys time to think. I read a pretty good book. I think it was also suggested by one of our earlier guests, Michiel Toes. So Big Five for Life. I've been ranting about it for the last few days to everybody in our office, getting a bunch of ideas. So that would be my tip.
I'm waiting for my copy, man.
Ah, good. And you still need to take a cold shower.
I actually did. I actually took one.
You did?
Yeah, man. Last night. Well, I don't know if it counts as a full cold shower, but it was like 15 seconds of coldness, and then I said like, yeah, okay, I cannot deal with it. So, but it's a start, right?
It counts. In my book, it counts. Like just try
nice, awesome. All right, yeah. So my tip, it's going to be a boring one, but the weather is awesome, man. I'm gonna have a walk, I think, after this one, and I encourage everyone to do the same.
Oh, it's not bad.
Sounds
I
like a
think
plan.
that's a great
Yeah.
plan, Rolf. Kind of like chill out and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah.
Oh, that
Yep.
doesn't make sense in this. We're gonna publish it
Alright.
next week.
So,
Well,
Arjan, do
we're
you have
recording on
a
Friday
tip for the listener?
afternoon anyway.
No, just repeating what I said earlier. Do your homework when you go on this venture, and ask for help if you need it.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And I really like, how you say, like, treat them as your own team, because, I've heard people saying like, yeah, we just open up a can of developers and fix the problem, right? Just throw money and people at it, and
Yeah.
it's gonna solve the problem, and that's just not how it works. So it's not a silver bullet. And like I said, I really like treating them as part of the team, and then I can definitely see it being successful for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining. Sylvester, Pancha, thank you. And Arjan, very nice to have you on the show. I've heard a lot about you from the colleagues, so it's nice to also...
All good stories, right? All
meet
good
you,
stories.
To finally meet. And,
Yeah, well,
thanks
only
thanks for having me.
Only positive stories. Yeah. And I want to thank the listener, of course, as well. Thank you for listening to this episode of Scoutcast. And if you have any suggestions or remarks, then please send us a message at podcast@4scouts.nl, or you can find us on Twitter at 4scouts. And thanks for listening, and see you guys next time. Bye-bye. All right. So...
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows, with your host, Rolf Surd. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit 4scouts.nl and on Twitter at 4scouts. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time on Scoutcast, Roasting Marshmallows.